Hey, I'm Trey. Today's story is about a group that's responsible for the execution and disposal of scores of women. If you're interested in stories like these, I upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. Also, leave your comments and suggestions in the comment section. It would be greatly appreciated. Well, if you're ready, let's get started. April 1978, in the country of Australia, a married couple by the name of William and Valda Thomas enjoyed taking walks together, picking flowers and wild mushrooms in the brushland. This area is on the outskirts of their town, which is named Truro. The area was a true forest in every sense of the word, and it went on for miles. One day nearing dusk, after walking about a mile into the woods, they began to rummage through the vegetation. They were looking for the fattest mushrooms to pick. Valda noticed something that seemed to be out of place tucked under some brush, so she called her husband over to take a look. William wasn't sure what it was at first, so he took a closer look without actually touching it. To William, it looked like the leg bone of a cow. Hold on, wait a minute. This guy is not a farmer, but he runs into so many cow leg bones that he knows one when he sees it? Yeah, right. He told his wife that there were several farms on the outskirts of the woods, and occasionally cows would break free and become lost in the wilderness. William's theory was that one of those cows must have died of dehydration. Oh my God, this guy thinks he's the cow whisperer. When the two of them began searching for mushrooms, it was nearing dark. Now it was much later and becoming dark. Since they didn't have any flashlights, the two of them decided to quickly grab as many mushrooms as they could and head home before they became lost in the woods, much like this cow, allegedly. They made it home safely, but Valda became fixated on the cow's leg for some reason. It just bothered her. That's because she knows that her husband doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Her husband's explanation didn't quite sit too well with her. It really began to bother her, not quite believing that it was a cow leg, but she wasn't sure what to make of it. William assured her that this was the case, but Valda wasn't buying it. 2 days of constant, perpetual thoughts of this cow leg caused her to persuade her husband and herself to take another look. So they both went back to the location and found the cow leg. They began to poke and prod at it with sticks, picking off the dirt and leaves on and around it. Eventually, they uncovered enough to identify a woman's shoe attached to that leg. Although they were taken back by this, they still didn't want to believe that it could have been an actual human foot. Although they were both sickened by the possibility, they didn't want to alert the police until they were sure what it was. For all they knew, it could have been a fake or just some kind of mannequin leg that may have been discarded. William mustered up the strength to not throw up and remove the shoe from the bone. When he did this, he was confronted with an actual human foot with the skin still attached to the foot. They could also see that the toenails were polished on the foot, concluding that it was more than likely a female's foot. Also buried in the same hole was blood-soaked clothing found lying next to the foot. Whoever the killer was must have dumped the victim's clothes in the hole along with the leg. They both became immediately freaked out, dropped everything, and fled the location to contact the police. The authorities responded and identified the body of an 18-year-old missing female who was later identified as Veronica Knight. Due to the extreme stage of decomposition, the authorities were not able to determine the cause of death. The police assumed that Veronica must have gotten lost in the woods and died of dehydration. Because they had nothing to go on, the death was labeled as accidental. April of 1979. The police found another body of a 16-year-old girl by the name of Sylvia Pittman. She was found less than a mile away from where Veronica's body was located. Similar situation as Veronica's body, due to the advanced stage of decomposition, the death was undeterminable. Sylvia was found to have been reported missing at the same time Veronica was reported missing. The authorities entertained the thought that both deaths might be related, but without further evidence, there was nothing to investigate. Even though the authorities were apprehensive on commencing an investigation without further evidence, they were actually obligated to disprove that the deaths were related by searching for additional victims or potential suspects. Unfortunately, their assumptions were proven correct. In just 11 days, the authorities found the bodies of 2 women buried in a shallow grave together. They were located in the same woods, also in the same decomposition state as the others. They were ultimately identified as Connie Lore Dandies and Vicky Howell. Again, much like the previous victims, the police were unable to identify the cause of death due to the stages of decomposition. Also, there was no such thing as DNA research. The authorities placed a reward out for $30,000 for any information that would assist them with the case because they were baffled. The surrounding communities became fearful of going anywhere in the woods. The police assumed that there was a murderous, crazy maniac living in the woods. Just imagine the terror that the local people felt waking up one day to a quiet community, and then within a few months period, the police unearthed a total of 4 dead bodies in the adjacent woods to each one of these communities. 2 homeless drifters by the name of Christopher Worrell and James Miller did everything together. They would find shelter, food, and clothing. Occasionally, they even had a sexual relationship with one another, but decided to stop so that it would not interfere with their friendship. During their time together, while being transients, Christopher was able to meet up with an ex-girlfriend of his that owned her own vehicle. Christopher was thrilled about this and would beg and plead daily for her to allow him to operate her vehicle. She was apprehensive because Christopher didn't have a driver's license, let alone have any experience in operating a vehicle. That's the pitfalls of being homeless. Due to the constant pressure and nagging of Christopher, the female gave in to his request. As soon as he began operating the vehicle, he drove too fast, had a blowout, in which caused an accident. They were both killed. This caused James to fall in a deep depression. Losing his brother, his best friend, and lover all in one shot caused him to lose it. He began to drink heavily and take drugs. During Christopher's funeral, James felt alone and really wanted to get off his chest his feelings about Christopher and share their escapades together. He didn't really know many of Christopher's friends, but he felt some type of kinship with one of Christopher's exes, who was only identified as Amelia. Seeing as though they both had an intimate relationship with him, he felt like he would be able to bond with her and share his experiences. James started out with small talk and Amelia reciprocated. Amelia went on to tell James that Christopher had a blood clot on the brain which may have contributed to his death. This information gave James the go-ahead to tell her that the same blood clot could have contributed to Christopher's mood swings, which caused him to be so fixated on thrill killings. Amelia didn't know what to say, but in her mind, she must have immediately thought that this guy was either crazy or knew something more about the local murders that took place. Amelia had to keep her composure so that James would not detect what she was feeling, but she was immediately terrified of James. James would not give her any details, but he assured her that Christopher lived that thrill-seeking double life. After hearing this, Amelia notified the police of this with hopes of bringing the killers to justice and possibly accepting the reward. The following day, the police located James and brought him in for questioning. Initially, James denied everything to the police, but when confronted with the information he provided to Amelia, he broke down and told everything. James also led the police to where an additional 3 murder victims were buried. He notified them that they were killed in the same manner as the others. James blamed Christopher for all the murders, saying that he had uncontrollable mood swings which caused him to lose his temper. Christopher would have this psychopathic long stare which gave James the creeps when he looked at him. Christopher was a handsome young man and was able to attract many single women throughout the area. When the girls didn't do as he wished sexually, this made him angry. When he became angry, he would strangle each female to death. Afterwards, he would then rape each dead girl's body. James stated that in each case, he was not a participant in the murders, but he did help Christopher dispose of all the bodies. James also admitted that the last murder victim was actually still alive. Christopher had strangled a young girl seemingly to death. While they were actually digging the hole, James noticed that the girl was still alive but unconscious. James told that to Christopher, but he didn't seem to care. They both dropped her in the hole and covered her up with dirt, killing her. When the authorities asked James why didn't he just resist Christopher and save their lives, he responded, it was because he feared his temper so much that he did what he was instructed to do. James was charged with 7 murders, but only found guilty of 6 and was given a life sentence. In 1999, James was granted parole and set free. If you enjoy more stories like these, click on one of the suggested videos above. I also upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. God bless and stay safe.